there, travellers, and well met! Welcome to the mystical world of Fungeons and Flagons. What is it? Well, let me start off by introducing myself. I am the moderator, the creator of this wonderful, wild, hilarious adventure filled with improv and shenanigans, where barely a rule can be found. We're a lot like Dungeons & Dragons in that players can create a character and are inserted into an adventure by me. But the characters are made on the spot, and there are no character sheets, stats, rulebooks, or any other dice than a d20 to be found here. The focus is storytelling, improv, and luck. This season tells the story of the Arcane Academy. Previous seasons with entirely new cast and campaigns can be found on Geekbomb's YouTube. Here is every single recap in one video. Happy viewing! Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. We are introduced to the Arcane Academy, a college created by the esteemed researcher and academic Headmaster Reedville to take in those that had been affected or imbued, whichever way you look at it, with a raw magical energy that causes them to have random magic outbursts during heightened emotions. The purpose of the academy is for its students to undergo a series of tests, tasks, and trials to learn the skills and experience required to master the magic within them. It's here that we meet the rogue Goliath, Brumhild the Worthy, and the tiefling fighter, Elaine Nochert, two students drawn to the academy by their magic, ready for their first day. They are introduced to the high elf cleric, Voldred, a sneery elitist who questioned their worth. Headmaster Reedville set a series of small tasks for the trio to face: a test of insight, a shot of constitution, the ridding of rats, facing off with a locked door, and a reveal of personalized weapons hidden within the chests. After analysing the group's performance, Headmaster Reedville deemed Voldred's recklessness and lack of teamwork enough for him to be removed from his studies. Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. Our bright students at the esteemed Arcane Academy have now passed their first two tests. Armed with their newly gifted weapons and a new student, Atlas, wafting in a heap of smoke, they headed out to the grounds with the clue to obtain 3 special ingredients to make special armor, the clue being on a half-eaten scroll to determine and to go to the 3 different locations. They decided to split the damn party, and Brumhild the Worthy went to the lake to obtain the toad slime, which she did easily. Look at that toad. That toad looks
good. Toad.
Hi. I love it.
It's like a Studio Ghibli movie.
Right? How good is it? Terry is just amazing.
Nice.
Next, Elaine went into the caves to negotiate with the giant spideress to get 20 feet of spider silk in exchange for 20 years of his life. He gave 10 as a down payment and promised to make the spider shoes out of paper mache. And he writes that down.
He did do that.
The high wood elf, Atlas, shout out to Tony Revelori, headed into the forest to hunt the giant boar for its hide, which it managed to do without harming the truffle lover. All of the 3 passed with flying colors. Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. The students studying at the Arcane Academy have now received their new weapons and armor and put them to the test in the trial by combat against the other students at the school. Elaine, the tiefling fighter, and Brumhild, the Worthy, the Goliath rogue, were paired up to fight against the colorful barbarian duo, Magenta, the human flautist, and Emerald, her obsessive sidekick. Mad love and shout out to Anna Prosser and Rachel, aka Seltzer, for bringing their game quite literally. During the combat, things got very personal when Elaine took a slice out of Magenta's perfect hair. All their sight disappeared except through one eye at one stage. And then the eye saw the sign that fell from the sky, helping them regain their sight. Brumhild and Emerald spent more time trying to keep possession of the hair than actually focusing on winning the fight. leaving Magenta in the spotlight performing an incredible flute solo, and Elaine in pieces, quite literally. After being made whole again, the team took on a new foe, a newly changed Minotaur, or a Minotaur, their classmate Phineas. After its horns were lodged into the wooden wall and a swift kick to the neck, the ladies again proved their might in the throes of a fight. Their overall performance was judged by Headmaster Reedville, who claimed that Emerald and Magenta to be the champions of their trial, having bested Elaine and Broomhild. Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. Reeling from their loss in the combat arena, Elaine and Broomhild are partnered up with the recently fused students, Depeche the Warlock, Aarakocra Raven, and Niffle, the Satyr Bard Glee Captain, who combined is now known as Depeche Niffle. They were asked to perform their next task, to navigate, track, and tame their mount. Each was to be tasked with one of those roles. They headed into the forest grounds to begin navigation, but poor Elaine was not so great at reading maps, so blatantly just passed off his duties to Broomhild, who did a much better job. In a clearing, both white and tan fur, feathers and hide were found clinging to branches and brambles, with Depeche being able to track the paths that both pieces of evidence pointed to, when choosing whether he would go to the light or the dark side. Dude, of course he chose the dark path. The trio stumbled upon a mighty griffin with the head and wings of a giant eagle and the body and back legs and tail of a lion. Being a bard and with his lamp at the ready, Niffle played what he decided was a peaceful lullaby to try and put the griffin into a slumber in order to capture it. The lullaby was anything but peaceful, and the griffin remained uncatchable until its neck was successfully lassoed. It was the quick thinking of Depeche, who had in his possession a charm of considerable power called the Eye of the Abyss, in which anyone who looked into it became overwhelmed by melancholy. It meant the trio could mount it, but it certainly needed encouragement to fly. The team technically ran out of time, although they did complete the test, but how will it affect their future at the Academy? Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. With a new flying mount at their disposal, the not-so-dynamic duo, let's be honest here, took Lamps, the slightly less depressed, now that it's got a sneaky, snaky friend, Griffin, out for a test fly. A conjured storm appeared, swooping them into a new direction, landing on the not-so-nearby coastline with a dilapidated tower nearby. It was here that they met Lydia, a slightly disturbed woman with a dark secret. Her entire family and the tower's occupants had been cursed. They were trapped inside framed portraits which lined the walls of the tower. Lydia had been on her own for decades, trying to figure out how to reverse this curse. Turns out, she just needed help. First, to get into her father's vault to retrieve the family staff. Second, to charge it, and then to use it. The trio struggled with trying to power the runes in the staff. It required a surge of power, the very power hidden within Broomhild and Elaine, and in fact all the students at the Academy. Set off by extreme emotions, it took the slewing of insults to try and surge, but unfortunately for Elaine, he's being played by Hector Navarro, who rolled so fucking poorly. He turned into a giant duck. He got a close-up into the camera, which was uncomfortable for everyone. But don't worry, a kiss from Lydia helped Broomhild fire up the remaining rune, and Lydia was able to cast Detect Magic, revealing the words of the curse. By reversing the order of the words in the spell, the curse was lifted, and Lydia's family, the esteemed Stonewall family of powerful mages, were returned to their original states, reuniting them with their daughter, but not before commenting on the magical draw of their Academy tattoos. The duo was able to pick a treasure from the Stonewall's vault. Broomhild went with a refreshing beer, whereas Elaine dropped a potion of Restore Age, which ended up sucking even more life out of him. Yet again, a simple task was met with crazy curveballs and breaking curfews. Headmaster Reedville, upon seeing an even older Elaine, put him in detention, where he now sits. As their studies further, real tasks and trials will be set. With the number of students dwindling at the academy each week, will our heroes be able to pass their crucial tasks to keep studying at the academy, to master this raw magic inside them once and for all? Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. With Elaine's continual bad luck and losing years of his age, he was actually sent to detention to think about his future at the Arcane Academy. Broomhild was tasked with helping to find a missing student, an artificer gnome named Haru Kumar Whitecastle, who never came back from a quest to retrieve a very special map that he still had on him. She teamed up with another gnome, Broomhild that is, teamed up with another gnome, Haven A Real Good Time, who was on that mission with Harrow, aka Hack, and knew where the location where he was last seen. They had to go to the Elf Citadel, the Green Gardens. First stop there to get advice, ask the tavern. But getting into said tavern, where they could hear Hack's cries for help, was rather difficult, with a Goliath bouncer in the way. Not set on letting underage students into the gambling establishment, after Haven, having used her powers, challenged the Goliath to show his ID. And with him not being able to, they gained entry. And they found a nearly naked gnome who had bet everything, including the map, in a bout of gambling against Claudius Maximus, whose picture we just saw, a rich high elf and new owner of the map. A battle broke out in the bar, and a flurry of spells, punches, and tackles. The map seemed to be fluttering around, with many attempts to catch it, but none all too successful, and it ended up back in Claudius's pocket, which delighted the cautious klepto Broomhild, who pickpocketed it and then made a quick dash for it, but not before befriending the fellow Goliath bouncer, who funnily enough attended the same Goliath high school. I kind of wish it was obvious that there's probably only one Goliath high school. Let them have their moment. Upon returning to the academy, the failure at betting and losing the map was deemed unacceptable to Headmaster Reedville, who expelled Hack on the spot. Haven, fighting the strength to fight back with some serious sass, also found herself expelled from the academy. At this stage during the studies, and with serious quests being tasked, failure is no longer an option. Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. Armed with the map showing the location of the ancient shard, Elaine and Broomhild head to the location on lamps, only to find that the island that's supposed to be, right there, is not right there. It's now underwater. They locate a nearby coastal port filled with pirates called Big Booty Bay. That is how you have to say it, apparently. The pirates seemed upset and very parrotless. Upon entering the local tavern, they met Paddy Pinkbeard, the pirate mage, who explained that the pirate parrots were going missing one by one. In exchange for a potion that could grant them the ability to breathe underwater, thus being able to visit the now underwater island, would they help her find their missing parrots? They ventured into the nearby forests where shrieks were heard, and they stumbled across the bodies of 3 of the meanest, toughest pirates who'd gone in, searching for more clues, other than one large white feather at every parrot disappearance. The adventurers finally found a treehouse, or was it a birdhouse, home to all the parrots, and a giant white Aarakocra, who used to be Paddy's pink pirate, but was transformed after being around her magic for so long. With the two reunited, it was nothing but support for each other. Paddy fulfilled her bargain by making the special potion, which was good enough for 3 uses. Our students now have what they need to venture underwater. What could possibly go wrong? Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. A portal opened on the docks of Big Booty Bay, and fellow Academy student Carrington Bearman, the half-orc barbarian with an emo hairdo and an ornate bear armor, stepped through, sent by Reedville to help with their final task of retrieving the ancient shard from the underwater temple, situated on an island that had been sunk. Luckily, they had a potion that allowed 3 people to breathe underwater. Flying on lamps, the depressed griffin, they arrived at the location of the underwater island, drank the potion, and dove into the waters. It was there, hidden between what were hills, the cave entrance to the temple. After kissing a glowing jellyfish, and Carrington getting Elaine to pee on him, the trio got ambushed by Swagon/Merlin type creatures, and they were finished off quickly, the leader holding the key to the entrance. After making their way through the main room, they had to pass the obstacle in the next, which was a giant turbine blasting a current of water at them. The moderator nearly threw her neck out trying to throw hints at Elaine, and he finally caught one and decided to teleport. And of course he rolled a 1, but landed a reroll, so was able to successfully teleport everyone to the other side. In the next room was the treasure chest that they were after, but it was guarded by a Myrmidon, a water elemental who had a giant trident, which also happened to be the key to the chest. After a lengthy battle leaving Carrington wondering if he was going to die alone, the trio tried anything but the key to open the chest, resulting in Broomhild losing her little toe. Finally, though, the shard of an ancient tablet was retrieved from the chest and the spell on the island was broken and it rose to the surface. They flew back to the academy, which is where we start this episode, previously on Fungeons and Flagons. Upon returning from their final task to retrieve the shard of an ancient tablet, Reedville greeted Elaine, Broomhild, and Carrington Bearman with excitement. He had to perform an overnight spell to charge the shard for the graduation ceremony the following day and was not to be disturbed. Armed with tasks to prepare for their graduation, the remaining students, including Emerald, Magenta, Depeshniffle, ... busily got to work. The next morning, Magenta discovered that Depeshniffle was dead in the library. Carrington's shield was laying nearby and a window was open. Someone in the academy is a murderer, and it was up to these students to find out who. Elaine was apparently in bed asleep all evening. Magenta and Emerald were cleaning the bathrooms. Broomhild was making a sandwich after finishing decorations in the main hall with Elaine, and Carrington was in the kitchens cooking until he bailed with lamps, getting drunk in the stables. There are all the tasks. Oh, that's right. And also Carrington Bearman got real emotional making bread. It turns out it was pretty hard. And Magenta and Emerald did not like cleaning the bathrooms. But look at the teamwork between Broomhild and Elaine. Isn't that the sweetest thing? They're the two best friends that anyone ever had. Stormshanks, thank you so much. We're just going to interrupt really quickly for gifting 10 subs in the community. Woo-hoo. Really appreciate that. Oh, thank you. Bread can be such a bitch, and that is a direct quote. So, who was the murderer? After a lot of discussions, accusations, and some searching of the school, Atlas's body was found in the classroom, nearly hidden in a portal in a cupboard. It was here that fingers were being pointed, and it was revealed that Emerald and Magenta were both the killers, secretly working for Reedville. This art is my favorite that I have seen. Terry, you are amazing. That is right, because Headmaster Reedville was actually charging up the ancient shards to open a portal to his home dimension, one where Emerald and Magenta could walk into to retrieve power and glory and all things promised to them, because their little deal with Reedville was struck up. And coming outside of that portal, coming from that realm into this, is an entire army slowly marching into the academy. What will our F-grade students do?
Previously on Fungeons and Flagons. With the 3 shards unified and charged, a portal had opened. And who would have thought it was the headmaster all along? It turns out that his name, Reedville, is an anagram for evil leader. Oh, so sneaky. And he'd been planning to absorb the harnessed magic of his students to power a portal back to his home plane. But what Broomhild and Elaine didn't know was that his kindly old man facade was in fact an illusion, because the real Reedville was Voldred all along. He called forth an army from his plane to march into the Arcane Academy to start conquering. Before our dynamic duo could even think of what to do next, Voldred summoned their worst fears, the beasts they encountered in episode 2. The giant spider, the massive toad, and the golden boar were now guarding the ancient shards. Despite the unimaginable onslaught of enemies, Elaine and Broomhild did not dive into despair. They found their courage and their abilities surged to meet the impossible task ahead of them, dismantling the shards and closing the portal. Luckily, Lamps the Griffin had come to help avenge the death of his friend, Carrington Bearman, and with its help, the trio defeated the summoned foes one by one. Voldred had underestimated his former students, but as the headmaster of the Arcane Academy, he still had plenty of cards up his sleeves. He disintegrated the magical weapons and armor that he previously gave Elaine and Brumhild, but even so, the last of his guardian beasts were beaten. Time was ticking, and Voldred's otherworldly army had now arrived through the rift, thousands strong. Ominously, the air itself started crackling, and a supernatural storm swept in as if to say that all hope was lost. Riding through the thunder and lightning flew Lydia Stonewall and her family of powerful mages. Voldred's wickedness had spread far beyond the Arcane Academy, and it was he who trapped them in their own tower for so many years. Facing old challenges and aided by new friends, together they took on the invading force, including 3 enemy commanders. Surging with might and magic, Elaine, Brumhild and Lydia took down 2 of the leaders, leaving the last to be disposed of by Voldred himself in a fit of anger. Disgusted by the weakness of his minions, Voldred finally revealed his final form, that of a colossal fire dragon. Voldragon's roar pierced the heavens as he grabbed both Elaine and Brumhild to fly them into the stormy sky. Using everything he had, Elaine teleported out of the creature's claws and unleashed a flurry of arrows to both free Brumhild and strike the infernal heart of Voldragon. In one last act of malevolence, Voldragon seized Brumhild in his claw once again and fell into his portal. Brumhild used the plant life of the land to entangle her and climb partially back to her world. From the rift, an outstretched hand grasped for purchase, and seeing the light of her life, Lydia clutched her hand onto Brumhild's to return. Voldragon fumed as every single one of his meticulous plans had failed, and as he did, a shadow enveloped his body. His father was there, looming over him, and he spoke to him about his great disappointment in Voldragon. Kicking his own son into the endless abyss, he closed the rift to his dimension. As he left, the Arcane Academy vanished, as yet another illusion of Voldred's had been dispelled. The triumphant trio wondered what other lies had lingered in this world as a result of Voldred's actions. They could not be certain, but they did know one truth. The Arcane Academy may be gone, but Elaine and Brumhild had gained full control of their powers, and so they had truly graduated nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching this recap of Fungeons and Flagons Arcane Academy. This series was funded by Geekbomb's Patreon backers, and I, moderator, would like to personally thank the adventurer and DM pass holders for their gallant efforts that helped bring this series to life.